What's up, Internet? Welcome to Once Over. I'm Kaylee, and with me today I have the Vern from Cinema Recall, and we're going to be giving the once over to Society. There will be spoilers.
Give it a good once over.
Giving us the once over.
Giving him the once over.
Give me a once over.
Down to give us the once over.
For a routine once over.
Once over.
Oh, just once over lightly.
The Vern, I am so happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm very happy and excited that you're bringing me to my first ever orgy.
What is the password? Orgy.
But I'm a little concerned that you brought along my parents and my sister along to this whole thing here. I don't know.
I felt like it needed to be a little different. So
I understand the whole family affair or something. I just wasn't sure. I thought it was role playing, but seeing them there was a little bit creepy and weird. But I'm excited to be here on the show with you.
I am so happy to have you. Before we get into the orgies, would you please tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where everybody can find you?
I am the Vern. I am the host of Cinema Recall Podcast. We are a podcast that talks about movies, but we also tend to love the movies that get shunned by society in a way. We like to give praise to movies like Howard the Duck, which you were on not too long ago. Thank you for that. And yes, we give praise to Grease 2 and also Xanadu and just a bunch of other movies. We also do a lot of audio drama adaptations, which I'm very proud of. So we've done one for Night of the Living Dead and Plan 9 from Outer Space, most recently Clue, and then upcoming, we are going to be doing an all-female version of Reservoir Dogs. So very excited to be recording that and releasing that towards the end of June.
That's so exciting. I will make sure to link that down below once it gets up so that everybody can go check it out because that's going to be so cool.
Oh, thank you very much.
We are talking about Society, which came out in 1989 and was directed by the amazing Brian Yuzna. I think that the whole reason that you and I decided to start talking about this movie is actually because it has Heidi Kozak in it.
You were on an episode of our podcast talking about Dogtooth. When talking about the themes of Dogtooth and all things going on with there, it reminded one of us about Society. I'm not quite sure if you mentioned it or I mentioned it, but the elements that happened with that family in Dogtooth very much reminded me of Society, and it's one that we want to cover.
It definitely has a lot of the same kind of paranoia feelings, and I think that is exactly what got us into talking about this, which is because there's some incestual stuff going on in both this and in Dogtooth. Yes. In a little bit different ways, but we'll get into all of that. So definitely kind of a similar vibe. Are you a big Brian Yuzna fan? Is it just this movie that you like?
The only thing I know about Brian Yuzna is that he was the producer of Re-Animator and From Beyond from Stuart Gordon. I know that he originally was going to produce and make Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with Stuart Gordon directing that, but somehow that project fell through and it got released by Disney and director Joe Johnston. Although I really would love to see a Brian Yuzna made movie with Stuart Gordon doing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So badly want to see that version.
Brian Yuzna loves his body horror, and this is the perfect example of that. He basically reverse engineered the film based upon the special effects that he was building with effects director Screaming Mad George to do all of these amazing effects. So you get this awesome 80s body horror, which he also does a little bit of in his movie The Dentist.
I have seen The Dentist before.
Yeah.
But when I watched it for a older podcast called Larry the Unwanted, and I was not paying attention to who the director of was that. I knew it had Corbin Person. That's the only thing I remember from that movie. That was an insane feature. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, this movie follows around Bill, who is played by Billy Warlock. He is a Beverly Hills teenager. He is paranoid that he is different from his family.
I mean, it's not the name Billy Warlock there. I mean, I know that's not his character's name, but can I just mention how cool that name Billy Warlock is?
It's a really cool name.
I know he was on Baywatch.
Yep. He was on Baywatch. I want to say he was also on a soap opera.
Yeah, he was. I think As the World Turns. But yeah.
Not a lot of other movies, if I remember correctly.
Not really. He just did mostly just TV shows. Days of Our Lives was the soap opera. along with the General Hospital, he didn't really have a lot of films. I mean, he was in Halloween 2 because his dad
His dad.
is Dick Warlock, who was the Michael Myers in Halloween 2, Brutal Hot Shots, Baywatch Picnic at Malibu Pier. Ooh. Yeah, but mostly
Best
just
the Baywatches, obviously.
TV shows, direct-to-DVD movies, stuff like that, but that's really about it.
He in this film is very different than his parents and his sister, who are all part of the wealthy elite. I think that the first 2/3 of this film do a really great job of building up the paranoia that he kind of experiences in his life. And that leads us into the final act, which, of course, is the most infamous of final acts, I think, in almost any movie ever. You can't talk about this film without talking about the shunting, without talking about the disgusting stuff that we will get into as we continue talking. The beginning of the film, it opens up with him in kind of a nightmarish little scene where he is carrying around a knife. Everything is kind of blue in color.
Yes.
He gets snapped out of that nightmarish scene when his mom says, "Bill," and he kind of gets snapped out of it. And then we go into him talking with his therapist about how his life is like a nightmare.
Ben Slack.
Yes, Ben Slack plays Dr. Cleveland, who's the therapist. Ben Slack actually has a ton of small roles in a bunch of other movies. He's in Times Square, which is the movie that's directed by Alan Moyle, who also did Empire Records. I love Empire Records. Times Square is like 1,000 times better than Empire Records.
Really?
It's so good. It's like a legitimately good movie, not just a nostalgia good movie. But he's also in Bachelor Party. I think he's in Serpico. So he's in he's got a bunch of small roles and stuff. Billy kind of tells a bunch of the story about what's going on to him to his therapist, but it becomes very clear relatively early on that his therapist might not always be so trustworthy. And again, that just adds to Billy's paranoia throughout the film.
It's perfectly normal to experience a certain irrational fear at your age. But it's no more than a stage.
We get introduced also to Billy's sister, Jenny.
But before we do get into the sister part, I do want to make one small comment, because after he's had that nightmare, or we're not quite sure if it's nightmare or not, is woke up by his mother, we do get this very odd credit sequence, which, has all the cast members, and with these weird images, you're not quite sure exactly what you're seeing. And I remember the first time I'm seeing this movie, you're looking at these images in the background and you're not quite sure what it is, but it just doesn't seem right. And they're having this very calm music, almost sounds like a Tiny Tim type of thing, It's
the music there is actually the Eton Boating song, which is a song that is from a very prestigious college. So we're already getting into this elitism, classism that we know we're going to be talking about in the film because we've seen it. But it's kind of subtly hinting in that those are the things that are happening. So it's that song or that music, but with different lyrics that are about society.
In a weird way too, Kaylee, it kind of reminds me of the opening of Heathers, where it has that very calm, dreamy light sequence happening with these upper scale women walking and they're crushing flowers. Very similar tones, I feel like, are happening in both movies.
I feel like that is very accurate. I did not think about that. And of course, again, we now know, having seen this movie, that opening sequence is going to be the shunt that is going to be the climax of the film.
I was kind of worried too that when Brian Yuzna uses something like that, if it's going to spoil the movie too much. Because when I first saw the movie, it's not so much, because it's kind of it's showing things that you're not quite understanding. The second time you see the movie, you know exactly what that is. Yes. But it's just weird how he puts that images in that.
This is a movie that I don't think that you can really spoil. I mean, I really think that even if you haven't seen this movie and you're watching the Vern and I talk about it right now, you're still going to enjoy it just as much, because it is so mind-bogglingly, hilariously amazing. It's just a fun one.
And almost in a way too, without the crazy special effects and the shunting scene, this is a kind of a good soap opera movie in a way. All the actors are doing it. Reminds me very much of Twin Peaks, just with body horror elements added to it. It feels like David Cronenberg and David Lynch got together and made a movie together. And their baby was Brian Yuzna.
One of my favorite movie comparisons that I've seen is that this should be called Eyes Wide Shunt.
Oh, fuck yes.
I was like, that's the best thing that I've ever heard in my life.
That is badass. Oh,
yes, that's
100%.
so accurate. So let's get into Billy's life a little bit. So he has a sister named Jenny, who's played by Patrice Jennings. She had a boyfriend who was named David Blanchard, played by Tim Bartel. We get to see that Blanchard is going and stalking Jenny. He shows up in her closet, and he clearly wants to tell her something because they've broken up. We're kind of led as the audience to think that he is like crazy ex-boyfriend, but we will soon find out that he is not so much crazy ex-boyfriend, but rather trying to warn her.
Planted bug in her earrings and try to spy her that way.
She is getting ready because she is about to have her coming out party, her debutante ball. She is becoming a member of society, of the high class.
You should be getting ready. You know Judge Carter will be there tonight.
So a lot of what we get to see with her is her being kind of conceited. We get to see her looking in the mirror and getting ready. One of the first things that we get to see that lets us know that this is going to be a body horror film is that when Bill is zipping up her dress to get her ready, her back starts pulsing and it's all sweaty.
Something wrong?
Yeah. And I know that, earlier in the movie that he working from that nightmare and he's always had these feelings of delusions going on. I just took that as him being delusional because he's had issues with that before and just add more to that.
You don't know at this point at all if he is the crazy one or if everybody else is the crazy one. The next crazy thing that happens, we get to see a full-on backward body distortion scene of Jenny. So this is the shower scene.
Yes, where you can kind of see her breasts coming out her back. Everything's from the front is now in the back. It reminds me totally of like President Scroob in Spaceballs.
Yes,
turns around is like, why didn't anyone tell me my ass was so big? And so I don't know. Maybe Brian Yuzna was watching Spaceballs, but no, I'm gonna put that on a 17, 18-year-old girl.
I do know that Yuzna actually decided to add that scene into the film. Originally, that wasn't going to be there, but he felt like something crazier needed to happen earlier on in the movie because really not a lot happens during the first 2/3.
And I liked that. I really
do too.
like that. I don't want to have too much of it up front because it just kind of ruins the surprise of it. I'll get more into how I think this movie should have been marketed, but I do agree with Yuzna on that one that doing something crazy in the beginning parts is a good setup. Also, I like the fact too, when you do later on, you hear the coming out party. I'm glad it's just stuff you hear. I thought that was actually really kind of a brilliant thing for using it to do. And I get too, it's the 80s. There's not going to be able to put like cameras in, there's their wardrobe and whatnot. I know they can do that shit now. In fact, this movie cannot really be made today now, really.
Nope.
I think it's perfect for that 80s zeitgeist. We had the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and we had all these shows that really glamorize wealth and society. We had shows like Dallas and Dynasty that really put that table, like elite person up there. Wall Street with Greed is Good. People were really getting more into that sort of thing. And I think this movie is a great satire of it. And that's one of the reasons why this movie probably wasn't successful here in the US when it came out, because we wanted to live that version. We wanted to live that lifestyle. And here's a movie that's sort of like commenting on it and satirizing it and criticizing it. And yet we still want to be a part of it. We want to be part of society. So when anyone like skewers us about it, that's when things get crazy.
This movie is literally about the upper class deplorables. We didn't want to think about them as deplorables at the time, but it's about the upper class deplorables wanting to feed on the lower class, literally. And I think you're totally right. We in the United States were just not ready for that, unfortunately. Now I think we're much more supportive of it.
Well, we're definitely much more supportive of, like, people eating the rich. Look at movies like Triangle of Sadness,
Yep.
That was
Oh,
great.
absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're also introduced at this point in the film to Bill's cheerleader girlfriend, Shauna, who's played by Heidi Kozak, who's also in Slumber Party Massacre 2.
That's what it was. That's the connection there with Heidi Kozak. I forgot which Slumber Party Massacre she was in. Was
Yes.
the first one? Was the second one with the dude with the guitar, the Andrew Dice Clay killer? I never thought I'd see like Andrew Dice Clay as a killer, but if you want to see Andrew Dice Clay as a killer, Andrew Dice Clay as a killer, Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Yes. Yeah, she's one of the singing girls. She does all the singing. Her character is a little interesting for me here. I understand that Bill probably needed to have a girlfriend character, like we needed a little bit of the sex appeal. We also needed Shauna to drive forward the plot because Shauna is constantly trying to get Bill to want to become hip and cool and a member of society. Shauna's really like, oh, we have to go to the cool kid's birthday party. We have to get invited to this.
You'll get us invited to Ted Ferguson's party. I can't believe we were left out.
We have to look nice. We have to be perfect. But I don't feel like she was super well developed other than that.
I do agree. I think that she's just sort of like you said before, the way to get the plot moving forward. She's kind of forgotten about usually like halfway through the movie a little bit. But in a way to be what we know what happens to Billy at the end of this, if she was just planted there. It kind of reminds me of like the Truman Show, where they planted in the Laura Linney character as his wife type of thing, where she's there to lead him to all these events and all these things happening. Like this was set from the very beginning, and she was there to control the situation and all that stuff.
I actually just watched this movie 2 times, and it's funny that you said that she gets forgotten about. I don't know what happens to her. I don't know the end of her character arc.
She was upset with Billy for flirting with that one girl, and I had to write down that.
We possibly can.
Devin DeVasquez,
Devin DeVasquez, Playboy Playmate of the Month in 1985, I think.
She sure was. Yep.
Yes. Very cool. And then after that, there's a scene on the beach
where Shauna gets squirted in the face with some sunscreen.
Yes, sure. Yep. There's 2 little kids, and then he meets Clarissa.
One of the kids is actually Brian Yuzna's kid.
Well, that made sense. Hey, your dad's working. Just come on to the beach there. Yeah. I wonder when he actually showed him that movie. This is what happens to you if you don't get straight A's.
Yeah.
And then
Shauna basically her role is kind of to show that we should care about fitting in. And because this is a satire, she's kind of an annoying character. So I don't want to fit in because she does want to fit in is kind of where I get led down with her. Also at the beach, though, this is the first time that we do get introduced to the Clarissa character, who is the character with all of the sex appeal.
Don't get too hot.
I like how this scene is done because the way that we meet Clarissa, again, she squirts Bill in the face with some sunscreen, and then she walks away, and it's a very exotic moment. And he goes over to ask Ted Ferguson, the cool kid, if he can go to his party. And as he's turning to walk over to talk with Ted Ferguson, he bumps into who we later find out is Clarissa's bulky, big mother.
And she seems to have some like brain damage.
Yes.
With her.
And in that scene, she's a literal barrier to him moving forward. Now, this is particularly interesting because we do later learn that Clarissa is actually a member of society. I think it's a little bit vague, but in my interpretation of the film, I think Clarissa is a member of society, which means that her mom is also a member of society, more than likely.
Also, too, her mother acts very different, almost as she's like in a stage.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's too early to mention this in this synopsis of this movie, but every time Bill tries to get like a help from somebody, that person ends up dead.
Yep.
But then later on, they come back, and this adds to his paranoia, where maybe they weren't dead to begin with, maybe they're still alive. And I still think that Clarissa's mother is someone that society did change and character. They do bring these other people back, and they brought back that character and just made me think that, well, wait a minute here now. Was she a sacrifice for the society
Interesting.
people before? I don't know. I'm reaching here just because of the way she just doesn't talk and she's just stoic, very much like a zombie. I think this is someone that did figure out the rules, did figure out the outcome society, and they didn't want to affect her daughter for this, so they just had her become comatose. I don't know, folks. Tell me if I'm right or wrong there.
I think that's a really cool interpretation. How do you think then? Okay, so Clarissa's mom is very obsessed with hair. There's one scene where she coughs up a hairball. There's another scene where she's caressing Milo, who is one of Bill's friends' hair all the time. Do you think that there's any interpretation to be had with that? That's a hard one.
Possibly she is trying to infuse with youth, because we know near the end how they can infuse with things, and so maybe that's just her way of trying to infuse. Maybe she's trying to do her own and try to feed off the life of that, but she doesn't have much power because she's a new replicate of what she was before in the past, and so she doesn't have quite the powers that societies has to do the power grabbing, the power sucking of the poor and whatnot. Like I said before, folks, I'm reaching. The great thing about this movie is that you can make up your own wild interpretations of this.
It's so true. It's so true. While he's at the beach, David Blanchard actually pulls Bill aside and says, I got to show you something.
I do want to mention something real quickly. Before that, we do have this debate that goes on between Billy Warlock's character and this very snobby guy that his girlfriend's trying to get invited to his party, and he won the debate, which I think was set up by the school and by society so that they were able to get invited to that rich kid's party. And
yes,
so yeah.
And that debate is also interesting. The topic of the debate is actually school uniforms.
I mean, just imagine everybody walking around in those idiotic clothes, like Marty over here is wearing right now.
So we're talking again about things that mostly only elitists would think about. You know, a lot of the time when we're talking about school uniforms, we're talking about private schools. A lot of the time when we're talking about school uniforms, it's because we want to make everybody be exactly the same, or because we don't want people to have individuality. So I did think it was particularly interesting with that debate that they are talking about uniforms.
And that also introduces the Clarissa character, who is there obviously to distract him. You know, she's wearing a nice outfit with skirts, and her legs opening and closing, doing the whole Sharon Stone basic instinct thing. It's great. And he gets flustered about the whole thing, not quite sure how to answer it. But he still manages to somewhat win the debate, despite everything that's happening. And I still think that once we learn about that character, the guy who's debating, the guy with the glasses, is that Milo? I forgot the name already.
Petrie is his last. Yes.
Sorry. Martin Petrie. Sorry, Martin, whose name should have been Milo, because you look like a Milo with those circular glasses and that hairdo, okay, that look a little... I'm almost a Milo, too, with my glasses as well, but you had the blonde hair. Blonde hair makes you a Milo, okay?
He is a Milo. I don't even remember why we started talking about him. Now I'm just thinking about how he's a Milo.
We're past the beach scene, and we're at the party now.
Yes. Okay. So, well, we're still at the beach scene, actually, because we need to talk about that David Blanchard actually pulls Bill aside at the beach because he is dying to tell Bill something. Earlier in the film, we saw Bill kicking him out because Jenny didn't want him around.
Look, something very weird is going on here.
We assumed at this point that David Blanchard is a stalker ex-boyfriend, but it turns out that he has a recorder that contains recordings of Billy's family doing some crazy stuff.
Listen.
I remember my own coming out. I was so excited.
Then you can do it with women as well as men.
Of course.
You know the schedule. First we dine, then copulation. With someone your own age first. Then with your mother and me. Then in comes the host.
Oh my gosh, it's so big. Oh, well, we'll work this, and I can't believe we're gonna be doing this. And just hearing the stuff and knowing that Billy's hearing his parents and his sister being involved with this, you're thinking, oh wow, this family is into some really deep orgy shit. Like
there's some crazy incest going on in this family. And this is the first time for me that I felt like, okay, Bill is definitely not insane. Something real is happening. I was like, oh my God, what is he going to do? You know? So his response to this is that he's like, oh my God, I have to go back and figure out what is going on.
He was pissed at him first for recording it. And he punched him, attacked him, and it made it sound like you're making this shit up here. You're just trying to make me more paranoid. Because at this point in the film, this character, Billy Wild's character, doesn't quite know what's real and what's not real. When he's at the doctor's office, he takes a bite of a peach, and the peach has all these worms in there too, and he's having all these crazy nightmares. He found his sister in a shower with boobs, but on their back, and when he opened the door, she was just naked. And I thought it was kind of weird for him to be. First of all, I'm gonna go back to that scene for 1 second there, because I thought it was weird that he goes into her room to grab a suntan lotion, and this girl has a shower, a private bathroom and shower, which I guess all rich people have. But instead of just grabbing the lotion and leaving, he goes into the bathroom to see his sister, which is really weird. I've had to borrow stuff from my sister in the bathroom. I had to open the door, grab the stuff, and then just leave. I didn't go towards the shower, and I'm not quite sure why he had to go to the shower. Maybe they have this type of weird close relationship that I never had with my sister. Maybe these are different in Beverly Hills. I don't know, folks. All right.
This is just what the wealthy elite do. I'll never understand it.
Yeah, and when I see the boobs in the back, I'm thinking, did I take acid today? I don't think I did. But they just gotta just back away from it. Never mention that shit ever again. All right. So sorry, continue. We're on the beach. He's hearing about the weird couplings happening with their family. Yeah.
So he's trying to tell everybody, hey, I heard this tape. It's completely crazy. So he's telling Shauna something is really weird that's going on between Jenny and my parents. I don't know what's going on. He tries to go tell Dr. Cleveland, his therapist. He gives Dr. Cleveland a copy of the tape. He's very hesitant to do that, but he eventually does it. Dr. Cleveland basically says, I listened to the tape and it was totally normal.
I remember my own coming out. God, I was so excited.
You mean I can dance with anyone I want?
Of course.
I don't understand.
Really, you're the crazy one. You should learn how to accept society's rules, including privacy. You shouldn't be recording things like this.
Yeah, if you break the rules, there are consequences, is what he says to him later on too. Because I know when he goes back and plays the tape, everything sounds normal. The daughter's like, oh, I can dance with this guy, with this guy. And dad's like, yes, you're going to dance with me first. The parents have this very waspy sort of prestige way of talking. They're very close to their daughter. There's one sequence where he comes home and the parents are just in bed. Dad's topless, massaging his daughter. They're all in bed.
They're all wearing a silky bathrobes also. It's a very uncomfortable scene. It's the perfect amount of discomfort in that scene. That's how uncomfortable I want to be.
I think that even without any of the crazy special effects and the shunting going on here, this is a very disturbing look at class and rich folks and everything. Yeah, very. As we made the connections between this and Dogtooth, because their parents have this weird connection going on with their kids, and the kids seem to be going along with it. It seems to be the daughter is going on with this too, and she's trying to get her brother to be involved with this as well, and it's just very crazy.
Billy believes that the tape that the doctor has now is a messed with tape. He thinks something is wrong with it because he heard the tape originally. So he tries to go get another copy of the tape from Blanchard, but he discovers that Blanchard has been in a car wreck and that he's dead. I think that's some of the only blood that we see in the film. There's no blood during any of the shunting scenes, and I can't think of any other bloody moments.
I think you might be right. you're right. I can't think of anything else that happens with that. Yeah,
It's
crazy.
interesting to have a horror movie, and in particular a body horror movie that just has none of that at all, and yet I was equally terrified.
I like the fact too that we're going to get into that crazy sequence at the end, and I don't think Brian Yuzna really want to have a lot of like gore moments, because in most horror movies you gotta have that gore moment happening all the time, and if you spoil that, it's not going to make the ending as impactful.
Yeah.
So I like the fact too it's just a simple car accident. I like the fact too that was nothing crazy, and at this time too, he's seen as like this stalker and this crazy person that's been trying to stalk Jenny for like, this long
Harass
time.
Jenny, yeah.
Harass Jenny. So him dying seems fit because he's paranoid, he's delusional, and then he had an accident, and then that was it. So there's no question about how he died. There's no other mystery. No one's going to try and solve this, except our lead character who knows that something's just not right, and he wants to just continue on with the investigation.
People are so nonchalant about Blanchard's death that when Bill goes to tell his parents and Jenny that Blanchard is dead.
So, what are you gonna wear?
You mean to the funeral?
No, you weirdo. To the Ferguson's party.
They say, oh yeah, we already know. Oh, and also, what are you going to wear to Ferguson's party? They don't care at all. And it's like, he's like, but Jenny, like, this is a guy you used to date. I understand maybe you guys weren't on the best terms at the end of his life, but, you know, have a heart or something.
This is why this reminds me so much of Heathers, because in the sequence after Martha Dunstock kills herself, and Shannon Doherty comes over and she finds the news about it. She's like, oh, is that Pate over there? You know, it's like no one seems to care about if the person is below society's rankings, then there seems to be less of a person. And the only way that person can become popular is through like, that's the way they become up in society. So I found it to be kind of a fascinating comparison.
Now we get to Ferguson's party. Clarissa comes up and starts dancing with Bill. There was one really interesting moment here for me, which is that Clarissa and Bill are kind of like ribbing each other a little bit. And Clarissa's like, well, where's Shauna? Then she's like, well, you know, I thought you were going with Shauna. Bill's response to that is, what, do you want my mother's maiden name also? Clarissa very, very quickly and very quietly says,
Real or adopted?
Real or adopted, implying that his mother is not his real mother. And we know that he already, because of the beginning, because of the first kind of act of the film, we already know that he feels like maybe he might be adopted just because he feels so different. He has that standard teenager, I don't belong, so maybe I'm adopted. And maybe that's why I'm the black sheep of the family. And then we get Clarissa hinting at it even more. And it's such a tiny, tiny moment. And you're so distracted by Clarissa's beauty that it's very easy to miss.
That is probably true, because I'm probably still in the same days that Billy was, that this gorgeous girl is talking to me, kind of forget about what your own name was or where your real parents are. So in this case right here, Kaylee, is Clarissa also adopted from society as well? Has she been like adopted? Has she been able to sort of like accept it and go along with it, and that's why she's not being consumed, because she's able to bring other people to this? I think it's her job to try and find other people and bring them in. Like, I think that Shauna is the person that kind of starts them out. I'm pretty sure Shauna and Billy were probably like high school sweethearts or childhood sweethearts, and then now when Bill sees this gorgeous Clarissa who is like 10 times hotter than Shauna was, like, oh wow, that's actually what a woman is now. All right, that's what I need to be going for now. And I'm pretty sure Clarissa's there to help bring him more into society, but then she's
definitely the seductress.
Seductress, yes.
Yes, she is absolutely the seductress. She leads him into a tent where Ferguson is. Ferguson and Bill kind of get into it.
You know the schedule. First, we dined. Then I your sister. And then everybody else got so turned on, they too.
Ferguson is like, oh yeah, I banged your sister, and so did everybody else.
And at this point, too, you're thinking that, oh wow, they're just having like sex parties right there.
Yeah.
Nothing just crazy. Just yeah, but even that alone right there is kind of like weird that his parents are having, his sisters are, and the judge and other people in this society are having like these weird, wild sex parties going on.
I will tell you that this movie, more than anything else, terrified me of being invited to any sort of underground orgy. I will never go to one. This is I'm too afraid of the shunting.
Yeah, that's true. And unless you have really good food there.
What the hell is this place? What did you bring me to?
This is a buffet.
Well, I can see that it's a buffet, but why is there a buffet at a goddamn orgy, Frank?
Well, you don't want to bang on an empty stomach, do you?
I don't want to bang any of these people anyway. They're all paunchy and weird and old.
All right, well, that would be the exception.
Food there, like lobster. I wouldn't be like catered by like a really fancy restaurant. I want Wolfgang Puck to cater an orgy for me. If I'm going to go, all right.
That's the requirement.
It's private there. I'm actually part of I'm part of a network called Full Swap Radio, which is a kink and fetish website.
That's
That's where
awesome.
our podcast is on as well. And they do have adult swinging sex parties going on that you can go to, but you have to spend a lot of money to get into it. And you have to pay for your own hotel and airfare, because one of the orders of that, it's like, yeah, you and your host should come out to one of our parties and whatnot. I don't have the money for it. So yeah.
That sounds wild. If you go, just be safe. Don't let what happens in society happen to you.
That's what worried me too. Plus, I'm not rich enough where I will be the one that gets sacrificed. And for some reason, if there's a contest that says, Vern, you want to trip out here? I'm like, I'm bringing my gun. I'm bringing some extra protection right there. I don't trust this just yet, all right?
Clarissa continues seducing Bill, and we actually get a sex scene with the two of them. Which
Very 90s as sex scene there too. I expect there's like a guy with like a saxophone come out there and play, because that's all sex scenes have.
It's a very erotic sex scene, and it definitely shows that Clarissa is in charge. Clarissa is on top. She is the one who is in control. We know that she's the one who has control over everything.
That's how I want my woman to be, just in control, all right?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Take control of me.
I don't think that you want something about her, which is that at some point during that sex scene, her body does the body distortion flip where her legs are backwards and her front is forwards. And we do get a little bit of that stuff.
It's a little crazy to see, but if a woman can do that with their body, it's kind of hot in a way too. And she seems to be like doing that stuff too when he's like inside her and everything too, and have her
she does like a weird like hand goes behind her head, like, and that's like the first time where he's like, what is happening?
That's the most terrifying but yet most fun sex anyone can kind of have in their life.
Extra flexible.
Well, yeah, because she'll like move her hands inside her body, and now he's just like touching your rear end and your front, and all these hands everywhere. She can contort her body. I'm like, I'm terrified, but at the moment, I would be into that.
Extra hands. Bill continues going crazy. A couple of other little things happen. He shows up at his car one day, and there is like a blow up doll along with a like Ken doll shoved in its mouth. And they're labeled Clarissa and Bill, and Shauna is very upset about that, unsurprisingly, when she sees it. His response to finding this blow-up doll in his car is that he takes it into his parents' house, which, like, I would not do that. I might deflate it first.
Mom, Dad, this is yours. Did you leave this in my car again? What? All right. Put your clothes back on, all right? Stop massaging my sister's back, all right? What's going on here, all right?
And his parents' response to that is basically, hey, dude, you're paranoid and you would make a great contribution to society. But Bill wants none of it. He's like, nope, you guys disgust me. And this is when Bill says the line to his father,
you butthead,
which will come back later in the movie. This is the best use of you butthead in any movie ever.
And the response to that is even later on, that's even better too. I wasn't pretty sure. Does he get sent to the hospital after this point?
Yes. Yes.
He does. Okay, they do send him out to the hospital. They put him in straitjackets. They put him on gurneys. He's in the hospital now. And this is where things get a little confusing for me, Kaylee.
Okay.
Because I know that after how was it, like Milo, his friend there, does get him out, he's changed. His personality has like changed the way he's now like being acceptive of what's happening. He's like he's more cocky. He's more like arrogant in a way. He's not so much paranoid anymore. It seems to be like, oh wow, he's changed, because during this movie, when he's at the funerals for the
Yes, at
people,
Blanchard's funeral,
and people think that he's dead or whatnot. I know that even other character becomes missing, and then they come back as a different character. There's a lot of like invasion of the body snatchers,
yes,
going on in this movie as well. I wasn't quite sure if Blanchard came back or not. Well, he does.
He does.
Okay,
Oh yeah, he does.
I don't want to spoil that right there. But other characters who try to tell Billy something, they appear to Billy as dead, and then they come back. Like there's that sequence where he's at the school and everyone's forgotten that this guy has died. But like, wait a minute here. All right, this guy is dead here. Our friend, this guy I've been debating this whole time here. He's no longer here. He's dead. And he comes back. He's like, I'm not dead. I'm still here.
I'm right here. Yeah, I'm right here. Yeah, this kind of, again, and I think that one of the reasons that people, despite the fact that this film is a cult classic, I think that one of the reasons that people don't talk a lot about, at least the beginning of it, everybody remembers the end of it, because it does get a little bit convoluted in here. So we have things like, we go to Blanchard's funeral. There's a character named Petrie who is saying, whose car gets shoved off the road. Then Bill is getting tormented in the woods. He's getting chased. The cops come, Clarissa comes, and then Petrie's car is different. There's a lot of little things that are happening. And as you were describing, at one point, Bill's character changes entirely. Instead of being paranoid, he becomes pompous. And that's a very big character shift. So this part is a little bit sketchy for me as well. I will definitely agree. I think what it's doing is it's building into the secrecy of what's going on, and it's creating a paranoia in me. Even though I have a little bit of a challenge actually following exactly what's going on here, it almost builds that tension for me in a really wonderful way that I need in order to make it through the last third of this movie.
That's true. And I think, since he doesn't know exactly who to trust or who not to trust, I believe that Billy's acting this way so that he didn't get more answers. Because if he shows up just being like, oh, what's going on? I got to stay from this hospital here. They're doing some weird, crazy things, and please help me out. They're going to know that he's in with it, maybe. And I know that particular character that is friends with Billy is trying to discover secrets himself, but he's not quite sure who to trust or who not to trust. He thought he could trust Clarissa in a way, and
I think that's a really great point too. I love the red herrings in this movie. I don't know who I can trust and who I can't trust either. I'm going through it with Bill, and that is awesome.
I like the whole mystery angle that he's trying to do with his friends disappearing and him trying to solve that, because this moment right here, he just believes his parents and sister are having incest with the town, and everyone that's trying to tell him like stuff about it is dying. All right, very much. It has that. Who was the name of the guy who had the island, that Sitz Island, that went to jail? Jeffrey Epstein. Yes,
it is very Jeffrey Epstein.
The whole element of the rich. Maybe there's a lot of shunting going on that island. That's when I was watching this movie. It's like Jeffrey Epstein Sets Island, the movie, is what this was. Yeah.
That's really funny. Yeah, that was just Shunting Island over there. As we move into the final act of the film, we talked about this character shift that Bill has, and this happens as Bill gets admitted to the hospital. The family is going crazier and crazier, and he goes back to the house. Bill sees that everyone is there. So his parents are there, his sister is there, Dr. Cleveland is there, the judge is there, and all of these people drug Bill so that he gets taken by paramedics into the hospital. Milo follows him, trying to help him. When Bill finally gets out of the hospital, he, I guess, escapes. That's kind of a maybe too exciting way to describe what he does, but he leaves the hospital. He is now this pompous kind of asshole. Milo is concerned because Milo's like, dude, don't you think something is going on? Because your car is just magically here. They told me that you were dead, and now all of a sudden you're out here walking. Don't you think this might be a setup? Bill seems to just not care at all about that.
Paranoid?
I'm not paranoid. All my fears are real. Come on.
He's like, nope, I am going back to the house. I'm going to go to Clarissa and I am going to figure out what is going on. He tries to get Clarissa and he gets very aggressive with her, actually. And she says to him, do not go home. At this point in the film, I think that Clarissa, even if she was supposed to be the lure, even if she was supposed to be the seductress, I think that she might love Bill.
Don't go home, Billy.
Don't go home. Are you kidding? They want me home. It's time to party hardy.
Totally. Yeah, she has connection with them.
Yeah.
That hair that he has. I don't know. They don't really have many scenes together, really.
No, they really don't.
Her to have like this love infatuation with him. But then again, I mean, his actor's name is Billy Warlock. He does have that hair there, so maybe there was something going on there. Maybe it's love through physical intimacy. I know a lot of things happen where love can happen just through sex. So who knows?
Or maybe she saw him in Baywatch. We don't even know.
You know, that could be 100% Kelly. I'm not going to deny that right there. So, hey, beautiful people attract other beautiful people. That's the way.
Yeah, he saw her in Playboy, so it worked out great. Despite the fact that she warns him not to go back to his house, of course, Bill goes back to the house, and we get the same kind of nightmare scene that we had in the beginning. So the lights are off. We get these blue kind of lighting effects. And he grabs the knife, so it's just like in the beginning scenes. This is where the climax of the film, by far, not just because we're about to see an orgy, but also because we are about to see some of the weirdest body horror that I could possibly imagine in my life.
Everyone has like this like pinkish glow to them.
Yes.
Ferguson's like, because they have them like bondage up.
Mom? Dad, I'd like to have a little chat with you.
They get one of those like dog collars, like the ones that have like the long sticks so that you can like hold it far away and it can't get close to you, and then it like goes around your neck. So they're like holding Billy with that.
I've had a dominatrix do that to me once with the collar, the pole right there.
Blah, 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 blah. Pull the chain.
Yeah. So but you didn't get shunt. I'm guessing.
I did not get shunt. Right?
You lived to tell the tale.
I've got sores on my back, and they use like this like weird like electrical like cattle zapper on me too. But yeah, she had me in one of those like long poles with the dog collar, the rope around the neck, and had me on all fours and just kind of pulled me up there. Yeah, it was quite. Sorry, I'm sharing too much with this. I apologize for that, folks.
Wild. It sounds great. I mean, as long as your parents and your sister weren't there, then it sounds very positive.
Mom's like, tighter, pull the thing tighter, right?
You son of a bitch. God show.
Make sure it doesn't get up again. No.
So everybody at this party is like patting each other on the back. They're like, yeah, we got Bill. Everything's going to be great. They say at one point,
I do love the smell of the hunt and the taste of the shunt.
So this is the first time that we get this terminology, shunting, which is a true medical term.
And now a message from Dr. Steve.
Hey, Kaylee. A shunt in medicine is a surgical procedure that creates an alternate pathway for a fluid to flow around an obstruction or blockage. By definition, they connect two parts of the body that were previously unconnected to allow fluid to flow between them. For example, a shunt could be used to relieve pressure in the brain by removing excess fluid, by drilling a hole in the top of the head, passing a catheter through the brain and tunneling it down into the abdomen. A stent, on the other hand, is generally a rigid tube inserted into a vessel or intestine to prop up the walls to reestablish flow that was previously blocked. So now you know. Thanks for asking and allowing me to impart knowledge, however trivial, to the world.
That is shunting, and shunting is taken to the extreme in this film as we get to see everybody's bodies melding into each other.
Yeah, they do this weird like melt in their mouths, like form into like these pink tubes, and it becomes like this very much this pink jello gelatinous mess on things on each other. They can reach their hands inside their skin and move it all around. And they're not only doing this to, I guess, their victims, but each other as well. This is how they just tend to become close. And you can put your hands literally inside someone and feel inside their skin and everything all around. You can stretch their skin out. You can hold their heads apart in different ways and somebody to put their fist up someone's ass all the way up into their mouth and come out there. So yeah. Imagine this how you will, folks. Just like right there, like mouth coming in my head, like
Yeah.
just right there, and then hands right there, just twisting everywhere, and
covered in jelly though. You have to be covered in jelly while you're doing it. It's very slimy, is what it looks like.
Feast on the goo inside.
And of course, the person who gets the fist up the butt is Blanchard, because they bring Blanchard back. They are going to do a double shunt tonight. They're going to get both Blanchard and Bill.
Mm-hmm.
So the first shunt that we see is actually the shunt on Blanchard. And it is this movie was reverse engineered so that these effect scenes could be done. Screaming Mad George, amazing at special effects. Absolutely outstanding. This scene, it holds up so well. It's so disgusting. Every single way that a mouth is connected to another body part through all of this like slime and tissue is so successful.
I mean, well, you look at the movies that Mad George has done in the past, like Big Trouble, China, Nightmare,
Dream Warriors.
Oh,
and 4, I think.
Did he design it? Oh, it's number 4. Okay, so he probably did that pizza with all the souls on there. So
I'm pretty sure that he also did one of my favorites in Dream Warrior is the Into the TV. Welcome to Primetime, bitch.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he did that too.
That and the Freddy Snake.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
The bitch. So yeah. He also, Brian Yuzna only directed one movie, and that was The Guyver with Mark Hamill.
You badmouthed MacGyver, didn't you?
Which I should watch. I had no idea he did that, but I remember the anime. I remember watching like the first couple of the OAV videos of The Guyver, and when the movie came out, I just thought it was like a cheap US version of an anime where they're gonna water down all the violence that happens. But now I know that it's bad. Mad George that's gonna be doing the direction of that. I will have to first. Screaming Mad George. Yeah. I love you. I will watch the movie The Guyver now.
A lot of the inspiration that they used was actually from the Salvador Dali painting called The Great Masturbator. And if you look at that painting, you can see where the inspiration for this shunt design came from. Again, it's very drippy. It's very, you don't really know what you're looking at. And that is very much, they captured that extremely well in society.
That is so great. I just want to see Salvador Dali at a pompous, New York Art Festival. And I'd like to talk to you about my next painting here. It's called The Great Masturbator.
Walking his armadillo.
I was going to call it the Jerk Off Lenotidus, but I thought The Great Masturbator was a better title for this one. So, I'm here to just suck off you rich assholes right here and jerk off to my painting. All right. That's what it's going to call The Great Masturbator, because you're all going to masturbate all over art and everything too. Yeah, so.
And very much a similar message. The message of this film is the rich have always fed off of the poor. This is another time, I think, in the movie that we are getting to hear the society theme song, which is the Eton boating song. I also forgot to mention about that song something that I really love about it. It was also in the TV show The Prisoner from the 60s. I really, really love that TV show. That's probably my second favorite TV show of all time, right behind The Simpsons. And so that is just another thing that made me happy.
Is it just me, Kaylee? This song sounds like it's sung by Tiny Tim.
Yeah, it really does. I think you're right. It does.
It sounds very much like Tiny Tim with the ukulele and fair enough there. I want to mention two things too about when Blanchard.
Yes,
Blanchard. When he's getting that first shunting by the Judge Carter, played by David Wiley, and he's on top of him. He's got that cigar, which is
It's
for
so
me,
good.
That cigar just adds so much to it. It's even more creepier than the shunting that's going on.
Yes.
But he's like, I see a beauty mark here, and just like go into his ear and plug it out.
He actually, that beauty mark, that's a good point too, because after he shunts Blanchard has partially become a part of him, and now he has a beauty mark on him.
I've got to pull myself together. The beauty mark.
That cigar, though, you are so extremely correct. Whenever you have like the kind of evil character in these 80s movies, I love it when they have a big old stogie. And I am so impressed that he kept that cigar in his mouth when he was covered in slime. Like, how did it not just constantly fall out? It was very impressive.
Yeah, that's like control right there. And it just makes so much sense. There's not so much smoke is coming out there too. So he just has a way of, and it's just so much more disgusting to see that.
So we do have, we have this actual shunt happening, which is the skin melding and all of this disgustingness. In addition to that, we get a couple of other little body horror things that are happening during this time, which is that Bill gets to see his parents in some very interesting positions. For example, he sees his mom with leg arms.
Oh, Billy, how sweet of you to come here to me.
Yes.
And then Jenny comes out of her vagina.
If you have any edible fantasies you'd like to indulge in, Billy, now's the time.
That's a very important moment in this movie. She's being birthed by her mother. We, of course, get Bill's dad as a butthead, which is... That's probably my favorite image of this movie.
Well, son, I guess you're right. I am a butthead.
Bends over, face comes right out of the birth there. Look at me, I am a butthead. And laughs maniacally.
And he does a little fart noise too. It's so perfect.
Hey, Bill.
Because it's clearly like a mouth fart noise, which makes it even funnier because he's a butt, so he could just do an actual fart. Oh my god, it's so good. I can't get over how amazing that is.
That is 100% true. That is just freaking wild and crazy. And knowing that this is all done with practical effects just makes it that much more crazy. When the mother bends down with those like hand lades and everything too. It's hard to imagine something like this being done today.
I can't
weird
imagine
to see, and I've seen this movie only twice. I watched it my second time just like a week ago or so, and it's a movie that I need to play for friends. I need to have people over just to experience this. I can't show them any trailers of this because I'll get more into my thoughts about how this movie is marketed once we get to the end of this, because there's some problems I have with the marketing. But that whole sequence and it builds up perfectly. There was a few crazy things that happened. We have the sister with the boobs on the back, and then we have like the set scene between Clarissa and Bill. That's really only the crazy things that are going on. But at this moment too, when you're watching the movie, you're still not quite sure if it's in his head or not. And the way that, and also I should mention this too, folks. This movie is less than 90 minutes. It is not that long of a movie. Nope. It's like an hour and like 18 minutes tops, really.
Yeah, definitely it packs a punch. That is for sure. One of the background things that's kind of happening during all of this disgusting last scene is that the judge makes a couple of little comments. The judge says something to the effect of, we're going to make Ferguson, we're going to get him an internship in Washington. So we start getting into like a little bit of nepotism here, where we're talking about how the high-end members of society, if you do what they want, then they will reward you by giving you what you want. And so Ferguson will further his career because he is in with this part of society. That is important to note because of the last line of the film. But what we get before that is that Bill and Ferguson have an ultimate showdown in the midst of all of this shunting. The two of them get into a fight, and Ferguson is just completely demolishing Bill. There's some karate kicks. It is a very fun fight scene, in my opinion. I like it a lot.
That was a good one there. Are we saying now what happens to old Fergie Boy Ferguson?
I'd love it if you described it. I guess we both kind of described the previous scene, but hit me with your best shot here.
So after Blanchard gets the whole shunt in, they're now going to do the whole same thing to Billy, and his mother and father says, "No, you were never part of us. You never belonged with us, anyways." And so they're going to do the shunt to him. After Billy and Ferguson get into their fight, Billy takes revenge on his own thing and is able to basically, how to describe this photo? Okay, I'm going to say it right now. Billy takes the hand, puts it inside of Ferguson, and is, wiggling around, doing the shunting thing, and then reaches hands up by where his mouth is, and literally pulls him out, and he becomes inside out. Ferguson becomes inside out. His inside is where his outside should be, and he's alive, I guess, but very much pain, which I imagine so. It's a weird thing for me to describe to you because you're not able to see this. But if you can, just imagine someone just taking your hand inside you and just pulling you inside out. So like the hand's here, it's in my mouth right there. It's not, or literally pulling my insides where my outsides are.
And then he does like the weird mouth thing too. He does like the like I can't even do it, but he like makes it, yeah. So fucking good. It's amazing. We get now Bill has destroyed Ferguson. We're gonna call that pure and utter destruction. And so Bill, Milo, and Clarissa leave. Think that is kind of a weird way to end the movie because why did they just let them leave? I feel like society is very powerful.
I imagine that they were going to make a sequel.
Yeah.
Where obviously, but I do agree, it just ends abruptly. And I really wish there was some sort of like coda that happens. Something like they escape, but society is still there to chase after them. Like they're still...
Well, so we do get the very last line of the movie, which is why I mentioned that the judge had promised Ferguson an internship. The last line of the movie is the judge saying,
"Well, Dr. Cleveland, it looks as though I may have an opening in Washington next summer. Know what I mean?
I guess I'm going to have an opening for that internship." The judge, again, is being callous. He doesn't care if it's Ferguson who's advancing or somebody else, but he is going to fill that role. We are going to continue having members of society. We are going to continue having the rich feed the rich. We are going to continue having the rich feed off the poor. So we do get a little bit of that with that last line. But again, I just don't understand why they let Bill go. They're very powerful.
Yeah. And I imagine too that he'll be hunted for a long time, even after he does escape. I imagine that at that moment of the film, since all the budget was spent on that wild special effects at the end, things had to be wrapped up really briefly. This was the first time Brian Yuzna directed a movie, and being the fact that he is a producer, produced From Beyond and Re-Animator, he knows how tight a budget can be. And after that sequence in the escape, he's thinking there's not much more for the people to see. Our lead character had a conflict. He resolved it. Bam, let's get the fuck out.
Yep, we're done. We're done here. I mean, again, it does make sense also if the only thing that we cared about when we were making this movie was effects. We succeeded in that. We can be done now.
This movie, Society, was in Europe first in 1989. It did not come to the US until like 1992, almost 3 or 4 years. And European audiences loved this movie a lot more than US audiences. When it came up to the US, it was forgotten about. I remember the VHS where it has like the woman holding the mirror and her stretching her face out. It didn't seem to be that much of a horror film. And when you first watch it, it's really not. It's
not. Yeah.
It has elements of like Rosemary's Baby, where you have this lead character who is unsure about what's happening and things happening, and she feels it's like something's happening to her that shouldn't happen. Same thing to Billy in this. And I know the director has stated that European audiences can just go with this more. And like I mentioned before earlier, at this time in 1889, we were still very much in the whole greed aspect. The very much we want the big lifestyle, and so maybe we weren't ready for this type of like feature that criticizes and satirizes the rich. And the first like thirds of the movie, this plays very much like a soap opera. It's like a drama, like an after school type of drama. And I know during the 80s, we had, the big thing of the slashers where horror had to be just constant in your face all the time, give me the weird stuff. This movie does play very much like a European art house film, and that's why it became a cult classic after it was released. And it's a good movie. When I watched the trailers for it, the trailers give away a little bit too much of the effect works, and I get that because at that time
you had to get people in the seats.
I know, but I thought if this movie was sold more as like a drama, like this really crazy drama, maybe it might have done better. But then again, I don't know.
I think if it was sold as a drama, people would have been very offended by Butthead. Like, I think
I know, but I want that.
I want that too. Yeah, I was just gonna say, but that would be pretty hilarious.
I want people to like go into a movie expecting one thing. Like, I think the element of him finding out that his parents and his sister in the town are involved in like this sex cult, and he's trying to discover that and find out more information about that is really disturbing in and of itself. And then when you get to the whole body shunting, it just, that's way more than I expected. I thought I was going to get this drama about this guy who thinks his parents and the town are involved with a sex cult that's manipulating young people into it, and he's trying to save them from that. And then it becomes a whole thing where bodies are morphing into each other. That would just blow my mind. And I think the trailers should have done that more. Like, Billy has a seat, or the trailer should have been like this. All right. The narrator comes on and says, Billy's parents and family have a secret, and they're not quite sure, and Billy's not quite sure how to find out about it. And just something that really adds more into his paranoia. You're not quite sure what he sees is real or not. Are his parents and this town members, are they part of the sex cult? I don't know, but just trying to establish that more would just be a little better, because during the trailers, it shows you scenes of the shunting. It shows you the hand face right there. It just I like the effect work. I get that you kind of try to show that. Not too much. I would have shown the scene like the girl in the shower, maybe a little bit like that strange thing, or that sequence when the Clarissa
with her
turn
body.
herself. Her legs are facing one way, her body is facing another way. Just do quick thoughts like that with cuts of him eating the peach. With the worms.
The worms.
It comes back and it's like a regular peach and everything too. So something I wanted a trailer that really establishes that this person could be paranoid. He's seeing all these things. Is it real? Is it not real? Are his parents and town members part of the sex cult? Are they not? Just something that makes the mystery element more there. So when you're watching the movie, your head is in Billy's. So in your mind, you're thinking, well, is this real? Is this not real? But then at the end, holy shit, that was real. Instead of the trailer just kind of gives you a lot of the plot element there, and there's not much more surprises going on. And I want there to be in the marketing just a little bit more mystery there.
Subtlety. You've inspired me. I'm going to try to make this trailer that you're talking about.
I thought we weren't going to be seeing David Blanchard anymore.
The future student body president of Beverly Hills Academy.
You're aware, aren't you, that what you're doing is illegal?
We know all about the automobile accident, son.
We're just using their athletic ability to get the votes.
No, 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 no! You're not sorry!
I can't believe he would do this to me.
Do you want me to pee in it?
Look, I'm telling you, someone killed Martin Petrie.
Thank God you're here. You nearly spoiled everything.
I would absolutely love that. That would be amazing. I think the bots that they have with the woman stretching out her face with a mirror, I think that is really kind of good.
That's what I remember. So like when I went to the video store and I saw this on the shelf, I was like, what the hell is that? Like, it is a very cool visual.
Because it doesn't look like it would be a horror movie. You think it's just more like it's almost like a statement on beauty and whatnot. How people have to like change their face in order to seem more presentable to society. And I think the word society of itself is just good, just the way it is. I mentioned to you earlier that I like the opening credits, and I'll leave the opening credits the way they were because if you've never seen the movie, it doesn't give
you don't know what you're looking at.
I'll leave that. I think about maybe just doing all black over white, but no, I don't. Yeah,
I like the opening credits how they are because it's still a little obscured. You can't entirely tell what you're looking at, and again because we have that dreamy Eton Bodine song. It doesn't really feel like you're looking at anything disgusting. So I like that a lot. Some things that I wasn't a huge fan of in the movie, and I already mentioned a little bit of this. I'm not really a huge fan of Clarissa's mom as a character. I think she's kind of a funny one, but I could get rid of her. I could also probably get rid of Shauna. I mean, again, she's fine, but I just don't think that she adds enough to the film that we needed two female attractive girl characters in addition to Jenny, the sister. I really struggle with the ending of everybody just kind of escaping. Other than that, this movie is like wonderful for me.
I do agree with everything you said there. I don't think I have too many issues with it because it is paced well enough.
Yeah, the pacing is amazing. The acting is incredible. I think the storyline is great. And again, there's so much payoff for what ends up happening.
I think when I first watched this movie, I know I was buying more into the mystery of it.
Yeah.
Second time watching, you kind of know what's going on. You're just kind of waiting for that big payoff.
Yeah.
Very straight. I know that this is a movie that not a lot of people are going to enjoy watching this.
It's definitely for a specific type of audience.
Yeah, I know the Last Drive-In did a version of this.
Yeah.
Which is actually really great. Joe Bob does a lot of great factual things, which I should have watched again, but I couldn't find it on the Shudder app. So I hope to bring this movie back because it's a fun thing to watch because he goes into all of the details about them. But yeah.
So on my channel, I like to rate movies on a scale of 7 thumbs up. What would you rate this on a scale of 7 thumbs up?
I am going to give Society, directed by Brian Yuzna, a solid, I would say, I'm going to go a solid, it's not quite the masterpiece there. I'm going to go at least 6.
Yeah. I also would give this 6 thumbs up. I think that this movie is such a good, weird, quirky horror movie, body horror. I love body horror. I love the pacing. I love everything about it. I love the reveals. And I love that no matter how many times I've seen the shunting scene, I love the shunting scene.
So incredibly crazy. And okay, my complaint about the movie is that the shunting scene's a little bit too short.
Yeah, I would watch an hour and a half of shunting. Who can I give money to make that happen?
I imagine now Eyes Wide Shunt. I want someone to make Eyes Wide Shut, Eyes Wide Shunt. Tom Cruise goes into an orgy as the people just shunting with each other. In fact, someone needs to make a version of that movie where the shunting is, you know how in Eyes Wide Shut they superimposed like images to cover all the sets that were going on. Do that by much stuff, but it superimposed it with shunting.
Shunting.
Right?
I wonder if somebody's already done that actually. Eyes wide shunt. That's the best review of this movie is eyes wide shunt.
Yes.
That's it. That's all we have to. We could have just said that and then been done.
That's right. Yeah, just wild sets orgies going on right there. But if they don't actually, kill anyone, because it seems like when they do that shunting, they're just putting your fingers inside you and everything like that. They don't really go to kill anyone.
I think Blanchard dies. I think Blanchard, he's the only one I think who actually, but I guess we don't know that either. Maybe he comes back as a member of magical society.
I think this happens to Clarissa, that they were going to kill her, but they decided that no, and maybe she really got into it. She was afraid at first, but she's like, you know what? I actually like having the set.
You know what? We need Society 2, and we need Society the prequel. I want the origin story of Society.
There actually is a sequel in comic book form.
I have heard that. I have not read it. Have you read it?
I have not read it, but I will be looking that up after this episode to see if I can find a copy to see what goes on with that. And I know there's been a sequel been in development since like 2011 or so, but nothing's really come up that right now. But I think now in these days of like Kickstarter campaigns and Indiegogo campaigns, that
it could happen
easily do a sequel to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so very much for coming and talking with me about this movie. This was like such an incredible pleasure. It is fun to talk about weird incestuous orgies and particularly fun to do all that with you. It's been lovely.
I'm always here for any type of like orgies and weird sexual movies and things would be part of, all right?
Perfect. Would you tell everybody one more time about everything that you do and where they can find you?
Well, Cinema Recall, we are found everywhere you can find podcasts. We're recently going to be part of the Rabbit Hole Podcast, rabbitholepodcast.com. That's where you can find our newer episodes. Otherwise, you go to cinemarecall.net and we're on there. We're on Twitter at cinema_recall. I'm calling it Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Fuck that. It's Twitter.
I'll never call it X.
Yeah, it's Twitter. We're available on Instagram. Just search Cinema Recall Podcast. Type in your thing, Cinema Recall, beep, 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 pop up in your little search engines right there. We're available. We do review shows, audio dramas. Sometimes we'll get Pacific and reviews. Check out the episode we did on Dogtooth.
Yes.
Kelly is a guest. And also our review of Howard the Duck. Also a weird sexual movie that happened in the 80s as well.
I just realized that we were talking about movies, obviously, and you just mentioned Dogtooth. I happen to have sitting right next to me both Dogtooth, and we also mentioned Triangle of Sadness. I was very excited.
Good. Actually, yeah. Dogtooth, Society, then Triangle of Sadness.
Yes, that is a movie marathon right there.
That is your Eat the Rich, all right?
Yes, that is your Eat the Rich. We didn't even talk about the whole reason that I'm wearing the Eat the Rich shirt is because Milo, Bill's friend in the movie, has an Eat the Rich shirt, which I believe was actually a relic of Brian Yuzna's college days. I think it was his actual shirt. So I decided to imitate the film and eat the rich while they try to murder me because I'm the poor. Thank you again so much for joining, and thank you guys all so much for watching.
Thank you, everybody.